Welcome back to the deep dive. We are doing something a little different today. Usually we are looking at the future, tech trends or modern psychology or the shifting geopolitical landscape.
Right, the usual heavy forward-looking stuff.
Exactly. But today we are looking backward to understand the present. We are taking a massive stack of research today. I am talking literary criticism and historical analysis, sociological profiles, works.
It is a serious pile of paper, and we are aiming all of this at a book that I think everyone assumes they already know inside and out.
Oh, absolutely. It is the book that sits on almost every shelf in America, the one everyone skimmed in high school.
Probably while trying to finish an essay that was due the very next period.
Guilty as charged right there. I mean, I was doing the exact same thing. We are talking, of course, about F. Scott Fitzgerald's The Great Gatsby.
Set in the summer of 1922.
Right. And I have to be honest here, before digging into these materials you brought to the table, I had this very specific, very polished image in my head.
Let me guess. Leonardo DiCaprio raising a glass of champagne.
Yes, exactly that. Fireworks going off over a mansion, flapper dresses. A tragic but beautiful romance.
Yeah, that is the Baz Luhrmann filter, I like to call it. It is the pop culture version of the story. And honestly, it is the exact version Fitzgerald was absolutely terrified people would see.
Because it is just the surface.
Yeah.
But looking at the sources we have today, especially some of these much darker critical essays and the Marxist interpretations, it seems like that party version is exactly what the book was warning us against.
You have hit the nail on the head right out of the gate. I mean, the tragedy of Gatsby isn't that the guy loses the girl.
No, not at all.
The real tragedy is that we, the readers, often get seduced by the glamour, just like the characters do. And because of that, we miss the rot underneath. The research we are looking at today argues pretty convincingly that this isn't a love story.
It is a horror story.
It really is. It is a pessimistic critique of the American dream. It is a brutal study of class warfare and sociology. And it is this deep philosophical nightmare about the difference between illusion and reality.
That is a pretty heavy pivot from a late summer reading list. So let us set the stage properly. We need to transport ourselves back to really get this. We're in the summer of 1922. The Jazz Age.
Which is a term Fitzgerald actually coined himself.
I learned that from your notes. It is a brilliant piece of branding.
It is. But you have to understand the atmosphere of the time to understand why this book matters so much. World War I is over. The Spanish flu is over. America has emerged from the ashes of Europe as this massive global creditor nation.
So the economy isn't just growing, it is completely exploding.
Exploding. And for the first time in history, really, you have this massive, distinct youth culture.
This is the group they call the Lost Generation, right?
Right. But we need to be careful with that term. Lost doesn't mean they couldn't find a map or they didn't know what they wanted to major in. It refers to a deep spiritual disorientation.
Because of the war.
Exactly. These young people had seen the trenches of Europe. They had seen the absolute destruction of the old world order, kings and empires and traditional morality, the whole idea that if you are a good person, you will be safe. It all just got blown up in the war.
They come back to America, and suddenly there is just all this money floating around.
Oceans of money, unprecedented prosperity. And there is prohibition, which is a crucial part of the context. By banning alcohol, the government ironically made drinking a cool, rebellious act.
It's turned every single drink into a statement of defiance.
It did.
Yeah.
So the partying, the reckless jubilance that the sources describe it, wasn't just happiness. It was almost like
trauma response.
Precisely. It was manic.
Yeah.
It is what one critic in our stack calls spectroscopic gaiety.
Spectroscopic gaiety. I love that phrase.
Think about a kaleidoscope. It is bright, it is colorful, it shifts constantly, but when you really look at it, it is just broken bits of glass.
So the partying is intended to cover up a void.
It is entirely about forgetting. And that is the world Nick Carraway, our narrator, walks into. It looks like a party on the surface, but underneath it is cynical. It is corrupt. And as we will see, it is deadly.
Okay, so our mission today for the listener is to peel off that gold leaf and see what is underneath. And to do that, we have to look at the map. I was honestly surprised by how much the geography matters in this book.
Oh, the geography is everything.
It isn't just a setting, it is morality. We have the eggs, the valley, and the city. So let us start with the eggs.
The geography of morality is a great phrase for it.
Yeah.
You have these two formations on Long Island jutting out into the Sound. East Egg and West Egg.
And on a map, they look identical, right? Nick calls them enormous eggs.
Visually, yes, they mirror each other. but socially they might as well be in different galaxies.
And this sets up the fundamental conflict of the book, old money versus new money. Let us break down East Egg first, because this is where Tom and Daisy Buchanan live.
Right, so East Egg is the aristocracy. Now in America, we don't have titles. We don't have dukes and earls. So we have old money instead.
Which means they didn't earn it.
Exactly. These are people who inherited their fortunes. And that distinction is crucial to their psychology. The sources use phrases like staid nobility and dignified homogeneity.
Dignified homogeneity. That sounds incredibly boring, to be honest, but also really powerful.
It is powerful because it is exclusive. It means everyone in that circle follows the exact same unwritten code. They dress the same way they speak, with the same cadence. They go to the same Ivy League schools.
They don't have to try.
Exactly. They move with this careless grace because they have never actually had to strive for anything in their lives. They just exist. And because they didn't earn it, they have this deep, almost subconscious arrogance. They look down on anyone who actually has to work or hustle.
Which brings us across the bay to West Egg. This is where Nick rents his little commuter cottage, and of course where Gatsby lives in his massive palace.
West Egg is the Wild West of the East Coast. It is new money. The people here made their cash recently, maybe in the last 5 or 10 years.
The post-war boom.
Right? Maybe it was the stock market. Maybe it was the booming movie industry. Or maybe, as in Gatsby's case, it was bootlegging.
So they have the money just like the East Eggers, but they don't have the style.
They do not have the pedigree. And in this specific world, pedigree is the only currency that actually matters. The descriptions in the text are fascinating here. West Egg is described as flashy and colossal and overly compensating.
There is that specific detail about Gatsby's house that really stands out. Nick calls it a factual imitation of a Hotel de Ville in Normandy, so it is literally a copy of a French town hall.
Factual imitation. Fitzgerald is so incredibly precise with his language there. It looks real, but it is a copy. It has a tower, it has marble swimming pools, it has 40 acres of lawn, but it represents a complete lack of originality.
It is trying way too hard.
It lacks the subtle, understated nuance of East Egg. To Tom Buchanan, who is living across the bay, Gatsby isn't an American success story. He's just, and I quote, Mr. Nobody from nowhere.
That social barrier is completely invisible, but it is harder than steel. You can buy the giant house, but you cannot buy the history. It feels like the East Eggers are almost watching the West Eggers like you would watch an animal in a zoo, just thinking, look at them, trying to be like us.
It is a performance they find mildly amusing, but never actually convincing.
But there is a third place on this map. And honestly, this is the imagery that sticks with me the most from the entire novel. To get from the eggs to New York City, you have to pass through the Valley of Ashes.
This is undoubtedly the most symbolic landscape in the novel. It is this desolate strip of land where ashes grow like wheat into ridges and hills.
Ashes grow like wheat. It is such a perversion of nature. Wheat is life and sustenance, but ash is just waste. It is like an anti-farm.
That is exactly the point. And we are looking at this through the Western Marxist lens here, which is one of the key perspectives in our source stack today.
Let us dig into that because it is a really interesting way to view the book.
If the eggs represent the consumption of wealth, the champagne and the hydroplanes and the white dresses, the Valley of Ashes represents the production of that wealth and the refuse left behind. It is the literal dumping ground of capitalism.
So every time Gatsby pops a cork, the waste effectively goes here.
Figuratively and literally, yes.
Oh.
It is where the slag and the ash and the burnt-out coal from the city's massive power plants ends up. And the people who live there are trapped in it.
George and Myrtle Wilson, they are described as ash-gray men.
They are quite literally covered in the dust of the rich. The text says they move dimly, they are crumbling. It is this stark, brutal reminder that the Jazz Age was absolutely not a party for everyone.
Right, while Gatsby and Tom are drinking imported cocktails, the Wilsons are breathing in toxic dust.
And look at George Wilson's profession. He's a car mechanic. He fixes the toys that the rich people break. He is completely powerless in this ecosystem.
It sets up this incredible tension right from the start. You have the glittery, exclusive East Egg, the tacky, striving West Egg, and the gray, dying Valley of Ashes. Now, to navigate this map, we need a guide. Enter Nick Carraway.
Nick is a tricky character. He is one of the most heavily debated narrators in all of American literature.
Is he really? I mean, I always felt like he was just the nice guy of the story. He starts the book with that famous advice from his dad about whenever you feel like criticizing anyone, just remember that all the people in this world haven't had the advantages that you have had.
Right. He sells himself as the moral center, the tolerant, objective observer.
He does sell himself that way, yes. I mean,
Yeah.
he wants the reader to trust him completely.
He does, but you have to look closer at the actual text. He claims he's inclined to reserve all judgments, but then he spends the entire duration of the book judging absolutely everyone.
You know, now that you mention it, he does call them a rotten crowd eventually.
He describes almost everything with this underlying tone of scorn. He judges their taste, their morals, their handshakes, the way they laugh. Nick is what literary critics call an unreliable narrator.
But not because he is lying about the facts of the story, right?
That's the fact. He is unreliable because he is deeply conflicted about himself and his own desires.
Conflicted how exactly?
Well, he is a man in the middle.
Ah.
He's from the Midwest, which in this book represents traditional, solid morality. But he comes east because he wants to be a bond trader. He wants to get rich.
So he is attracted to the glamour just like everyone else.
Absolutely. There is a great line where he says he feels within and without, simultaneously enchanted and repelled by the inexhaustible variety of life.
That is such a relatable feeling, though. Think about it like watching reality TV or scrolling through a feed of wealthy influencers today. You look at it and think this is gross and superficial, but you also cannot stop looking.
A part of you kind of wants to be at the party.
Exactly. Nick is our proxy in that way. He allows us to be voyeurs at Gatsby's insane parties to drink the champagne, but he also gives us the moral distance to say, wow, these people are terrible.
He lets us have our cake and eat it too. As a modernist narrator, he is both inside the action and reflecting on it retrospectively.
But does he change over the course of the summer? Or is he just a camera recording the events?
Oh, he changes profoundly. It is an arc from innocence to deep experience. He goes from this optimistic young man who wants to be a, quote, well-rounded man to someone who is deeply traumatized by what he witnesses.
Right, by the end, he wants the world to be at moral attention. He retreats back to the Midwest because the East has become grotesque to him. He realizes the party isn't fun anymore.
The hangover sets in.
Let us talk about the people who cause that hangover, the players. And we have to start with the man on the marquee, Jay Gatsby, or as we find out later, James Gatsby.
The ultimate self-made man, or the ultimate fraud, depending entirely on how you choose to look at it.
The distinction between James Gatz and Jay Gatsby is the absolute key to his character, isn't it? James Gatz was a poor farm kid from North Dakota. Jay Gatsby is a constructed persona.
He didn't just change his name for convenience. The text explicitly says he sprang from his platonic conception of himself. He literally birthed himself from his own imagination.
He rejected his real parents because they were poor and didn't fit the dream.
He decided at age 17 that he was a son of God destined for greatness.
There is that amazing detail Nick finds at the end of the book, the schedule written in the back of the Hopalong Cassidy book. It is a children's Western book.
I love that detail so much. It's from 1906. Let us look at the list he wrote out as a boy. Rise from bed, 6 a.m., dumbbell exercise, study electricity, work, practice elocution.
It is pure Benjamin Franklin. It is the Protestant work ethic, early to bed, early to rise.
It is, and this is vital for understanding who Gatsby really is at his core. He started out believing in the clean American dream. He believed that if you disciplined yourself, if you improved your mind and worked hard, you would inevitably rise. He believed in merit.
He believed the world was essentially fair, so what went wrong? Why did he abandon that and become a bootlegger? Why involve himself with mobsters and criminals?
Because the clean dream was simply too slow. He fell in love with Daisy Fay, the Golden Girl, when he was a young officer in the war. He saw her house, her car, her lifestyle, and he realized that studying electricity and doing dumbbell exercises was never, ever going to get him the kind of massive wealth required to keep a woman like that.
The class barrier was too high to climb using the stairs.
So he had to cheat. The system failed him in a way. To cross that invisible moat into East Egg, he had to go completely outside the law. He hooked up with Meyer Wolfsheim, the man who, quote, fixed the World Series, and he started selling illegal alcohol and fake bonds.
He became a criminal to simulate the lifestyle of an aristocrat.
That connects perfectly back to that Marxist lens we touched on earlier. Gatsby operates under the delusion that if he accumulates enough stuff, enough silk shirts, enough hydroplanes, a big enough house, he can literally buy humanity.
He thinks he can buy love.
He thinks he can buy a past. He thinks he can rewrite history with a massive checkbook.
And that brings us perfectly to the object of his purchase, Daisy Buchanan.
Daisy.
Is there a character more frustrating in classic literature than Daisy Buchanan?
She is very difficult for modern readers to swallow. But we have to look at her as a symbol, not just as a bad girlfriend.
The famous line about her, the one everyone remembers, is, "Her voice is full of money."
Think about what that actually means. It is not just that she happens to be rich. It is that her very essence, her charm, her appeal, the gravitational pull that makes men lean toward her, it is the promise of wealth itself.
She represents ultimate status.
She represents a life where you are completely safe, high above the gritty struggles of the real world. She is the golden girl.
But she is completely hollow inside. There's that incredible scene where she tours Gatsby's house for the first time. She sees his custom shirts from England. He is throwing them on the table, just piles of silk and linen, and she breaks down sobbing. She says they are such beautiful shirts.
It is a devastating moment when you analyze it. She isn't crying because she loves Gatsby or missed him. She is crying because of the sheer material display. She is emotionally moved by objects.
She is often described with nature imagery, right? She is flower-like, but it is just a mask.
There's no substance there. She is a beautiful, fragile shell. And her defining characteristic is that she retreats behind her money whenever things get difficult or real.
And she is trapped in a way. She is married to Tom Buchanan, the brute.
Tom is terrifying. He is arguably one of the most physically menacing characters in American literature. Fitzgerald explicitly describes him as having a cruel body. He is a former football player. He is aggressive. He is patrician. He literally fills the doorway.
And he's not just a physical bully. He is a rampant bigot.
Right. We absolutely cannot gloss over that. Now remember, as we dive into this, we're just examining the themes Fitzgerald put in the text to build this character. But Tom is sitting at dinner ranting about a book called The Rise of the Colored Empires. He is obsessed with this paranoid idea that the white race is being submerged.
Why does Fitzgerald include that specifically? Is it just to make the reader hate him more?
It is much deeper than that. Tom represents the profound anxiety of the old money elite. They see the world changing around them. They see upstarts and new money like Gatsby rising to power. They see the racial dynamics and social hierarchies shifting post-war.
And they are terrified of losing their unearned dominance.
Exactly. So Tom asserts his power through blunt violence and control. He breaks Myrtle's nose with an open hand. He financially dominates George Wilson. He treats people like disposable things. He treats the entire world like it is his personal property.
Speaking of treating people like things, we need to talk about Jordan Baker, the new woman.
Jordan is fascinating. She is the direct counterpoint to Daisy. Daisy plays the role of the traditional helpless angel in the house, even if she does it cynically. Jordan is a flapper.
She plays golf professionally. She has short bobbed hair. She drives cars. She drinks alcohol openly. She occupies spaces that only men usually occupy.
But Nick points out her major flaw. He calls her incurably dishonest. She cheats at her golf tournaments. She lies about leaving a convertible top down in the rain.
She does, but ask yourself why she does it. Jordan is a woman navigating a deeply cynical, male-dominated world. Her dishonesty is a calculated survival mechanism.
Her cool, insolent smile is a shield against that world. If you pretend you don't care, you cannot be hurt. If you lie, you control the narrative. She is incredibly pragmatic. Daisy is a male fantasy, but Jordan is the hard reality of survival.
And then at the absolute bottom of the social ladder, we have the Wilsons, the victims of all this carelessness.
Myrtle and George. They are the collateral damage of the American dream. Myrtle is desperate. She thinks Tom Buchanan is her literal ticket out of the ashes.
Yeah.
She genuinely thinks he loves her.
She tries to mimic the upper class. When she is at the secret apartment in the city, she changes her dress and suddenly acts with this intense, haughty attitude.
It is tragic because she thinks she is entering their exclusive world, but to Tom, she is just a pet. A temporary distraction.
Exactly. And George is just beaten down by life. He is a worn-out man. He blends right into the cement walls of his garage. He represents the common man who played by all the rules and got absolutely nothing for it. He is a ghost in the machine of capitalism.
Which brings us to the absolute core theme of the novel, the corruption of the American dream. We touched on Gatsby's childhood schedule, but let us go deeper into what that dream originally meant versus what it became.
The original definition of the American dream was about real opportunity. It is a land where life should be better and richer and fuller for everyone, with opportunity for each according to ability or achievement.
That is the classic definition by James Truslow Adams. Notice that it is spiritual and material. It is about personal growth and character.
But in the 1920s, the spiritual part completely died.
It became purely about materialism. The dream devolved from becoming a better, smarter person to simply having better stuff. Motor cars, high wages, social status. It became entirely about quantity over quality.
And Gatsby is the perfect avatar of this corrupted dream. He conflates the idea of success with the act of winning Daisy.
And his tragic flaw is that he thinks he can fix time with money. There is that incredible, unforgettable moment where Nick tells him, "You cannot repeat the past." And Gatsby looks at him genuinely shocked and says, "Can't repeat the past? Why, of course you can."
That line gives me chills every single time I read it. It is so utterly delusional.
He thinks if he just arranges the stage perfectly, the giant house, the expensive lights, the orchestra, he can literally erase the 5 years that Daisy was married to Tom. He can erase the fact that she had a child. He thinks reality is optional if you just have enough cash.
He thinks he is a god.
He really does. And that leads us to the most famous symbol in the entire book, the green light.
It is located right at the end of Daisy's dock across the bay. Gatsby stands out on his lawn, staring at it every night, trembling.
Fitzgerald writes that Gatsby believed in the green light, the orgastic future that year by year recedes before us.
But what does the green light actually represent? Is it just Daisy?
It starts out as Daisy, but it quickly becomes much bigger than her. Green is the color of money, of greenbacks. It is the color of the, quote, fresh green breast of the New World, the literal promise of America itself when the Dutch sailors first saw it. But mostly it represents distance.
Distance. Tell me more about that.
As long as the light is far away across the dark water, it retains its magic. It is pure, unadulterated hope. But there's a really sad moment after Gatsby and Daisy finally reunite in Nick's house. Nick notes that the green light is just a light on a dock again. He says his count of enchanted objects had diminished by 1.
That is the inherent tragedy of actually achieving your dream, isn't it? The messy reality can never match the perfect fantasy.
Exactly. Gatsby's illusion was so colossal, so built up in his ghostly heart for 5 years, that a real, breathing, flawed human woman like Daisy could never actually satisfy it. She was doomed to fall short from the start. She's just a person. She sneezes, she gets bored, she makes mistakes. She cannot be a deity.
This leads right into the broader theme of illusion versus reality, because this whole book functions like a giant hall of mirrors.
It really does. Think about the character of Owl Eyes. He is that drunk guy Nick finds in Gatsby's massive library during one of the early parties. He is staring at the bookshelves, completely amazed.
He is amazed that the books are actually real. He fully expected them to be hollow cardboard props.
Exactly. He calls Gatsby a regular Belasco. David Belasco was a very famous theater producer at the time, known for highly realistic sets. Owl Eyes realizes that Gatsby is putting on a massive theatrical show. But here is the brilliant catch Fitzgerald throws in. He pulls a book off the shelf and sees that the pages are uncut.
Right, and for the listeners who might not know the historical context back then, books often came with the pages still folded and attached together at the edges from the printing press. You had to use a letter opener to physically slice them open before you could read them.
Right. So if the pages are uncut, it means the books have never been read. Not even once.
So the physical library is real, but the intellectualism, the culture it implies, is entirely fake.
It is just a set design. It is an elaborate roadhouse built to stage a grand play for an audience of exactly one person, Daisy. Gatsby doesn't care about literature or expanding his mind. He cares about looking like a man who cares about literature.
And that entire elaborate play crashes down violently at the Plaza Hotel. This is the absolute climax of the book. It is the hottest day of the summer. Everyone is sweaty and irritable, and the truth finally comes out.
This scene is the brutal death of the illusion. The pressure cooker explodes. Gatsby pushes Daisy simply too far. He demands that she look at Tom and say she never loved him.
He needs the past to be erased completely. He needs absolute purity. He needs to win 100% of the pot.
And she cannot do it. She breaks down crying and says, "I did love him once, but I loved you too."
And that word, too, absolutely destroys Gatsby.
It destroys his entire universe.
Yeah.
He cannot handle the complexity of her being a real person with a real history. He needs her to be his golden girl, who is frozen in time, perfectly waiting for him.
And Tom Buchanan sees this weakness and immediately pounces on it. He completely dismantles Gatsby in front of her. He reveals he's a bootlegger. He reveals the criminal, shady source of the money. And suddenly the polished Oxford gentleman persona just cracks. Gatsby looks desperate.
And Daisy, she just pulls away.
She realizes in that moment that Gatsby is high risk. Tom is safe. Tom is old money. They share a long history, a deep class solidarity that a guy like Gatsby can never, ever penetrate. The dead dream fights on for a few more hours in Gatsby's mind, but it is functionally over right there in that stifling hotel room. Let us talk about the specific symbols that Fitzgerald uses to reinforce all of this. We talked about the green light. What about the eyes of Dr. T.J. Eckelberg?
It is such a haunting, enduring image. These gigantic blue eyes with yellow spectacles painted on a massive billboard, brooding over the Valley of Ashes. They are fading and just peering out over the dumping ground.
To George Wilson, the poor, broken mechanic, they literally are God. He looks out the window at them after his wife dies and says, God sees everything.
But what are they really in the context of the story? They're an advertisement. They were put there by some wild wag of an oculist to make money and then completely abandoned when the advertising campaign ended.
That is an incredibly bleak metaphor.
It is deeply nihilistic. It suggests that in this modern hyper-materialist world, God has been replaced by commerce. There's no moral judge looking down to make things right, just an old forgotten ad. People like George are so desperate for meaning that they project God onto a billboard. But the billboard doesn't care. It just blankly stares.
It connects perfectly to the overarching theme of emptiness. The world is meaningless, just material without being real.
Exactly. And then we have the cars, the automobiles. They are practically characters themselves.
They are everywhere in this book, and they are incredibly dangerous.
They represent raw power and ultimate carelessness. Jordan Baker has that famous line where she defends her bad driving by saying it takes two to make an accident. She fully expects everyone else to get out of her way. And of course, the ultimate symbol of this is the death car. It is Gatsby's car. It is yellow, flashy, a circus wagon, Tom calls it.
And this is the crucial plot point everyone forgets until they reread it. Daisy is the one driving it when it strikes and kills Myrtle Wilson.
Which is the ultimate tragic irony of the novel. Daisy, the pure white flower, uses Gatsby's flashy yellow new wealth to destroy the poor working-class woman Myrtle. And then what does she do? She lets Gatsby take the blame without a second thought. It represents the extreme danger of wealth when it is wielded without any sense of responsibility or consequence.
You mentioned the colors there, white and yellow. Fitzgerald is remarkably specific with his color palette, isn't he?
Incredibly specific. Almost every color choice is deliberate. White is constantly associated with Daisy and Jordan. White dresses, white palaces, white roadsters. It represents a false purity. It looks clean, but it is completely cold. It is actually the absence of true color and life.
And yellow.
Yellow or gold is obviously wealth, but it is also corruption and death. Gatsby's car is yellow. The spectacles of Dr. Eckelberg are yellow, the yellow cocktail music at the parties. It is a color of money, but it's also the color of decay, like a bruised, overripe fruit.
And green.
Green is hope. It is the fresh green breast of the new world. It is the promise of tomorrow. But in the context of the book, the green is always just out of reach. It is always across the dark water.
And gray.
Gray is the total lack of life. The Valley of Ashes. George Wilson is covered in ash. It is the grim reality for those who are left behind by the relentless engine of the American dream.
Let us move to the end of the story. The tragedy. The Holocaust of the dream, as Fitzgerald calls it.
The ending is just a rapid cascade of inevitable disasters. Myrtle is dead in the street. George is absolutely mad with grief. And Tom winds George up like a cheap toy soldier and points him directly at Gatsby.
He explicitly tells George that the yellow car was Gatsby's. He conveniently doesn't mention that his own wife Daisy was the one driving.
No, of course not. He saves himself and he saves Daisy. So George goes to West Egg. He finds Gatsby floating in his pool, just waiting for a phone call from Daisy that is never going to come, and he shoots him. Then he turns the gun on himself.
It is so stark and sudden, but what is even sadder, I think what really drives the point home, is the funeral.
The funeral is the final, devastating verdict on Gatsby's entire life. Hundreds of people came to his parties every weekend. They drank his expensive wine. They ate his catered food. They gossiped endlessly about him. But when he died, no one came.
Just Nick Owl Eyes and Gatsby's father.
That is it. Even Meyer Wolfsheim, his criminal mentor and business partner, refuses to come. He says, I cannot get mixed up in it when a man gets killed. It exposes the absolute hollow emptiness of Gatsby's immense popularity. He was nothing but a commodity to them, a free bar. Once the party is over, the commodity has zero value.
The sudden appearance of Gatsby's father, Henry Gatz, is really heartbreaking. He is an old, poor man, and he is so proud. He shows Nick that book with the schedule written in it. He genuinely thinks his son was a great man who was going to build up the country. He doesn't know anything about the bootlegging or the mobsters. He just sees the pure innocence of the original dream.
It serves an important narrative purpose. It reminds us that Gatsby started with pure intentions. He wasn't born inherently corrupt. The dream itself corrupted him. The relentless pursuit of material wealth in a society that values nothing else corrupted him.
And then there is that chilling scene with Tom and Daisy right after the accident. Nick sneaks over and looks through the window. He expects to see them fighting or panicking. But what does he actually see?
They were sitting quietly at the kitchen table, eating cold fried chicken and drinking ale. They aren't happy exactly, but they aren't sad either. They are conspiring. They have retreated back into their impregnable fortress of wealth. They are safe. Gatsby is dead. Myrtle is dead. George is dead. But Tom and Daisy are just having a late-night snack.
That brings us to Nick's final judgment. They were careless people. Tom and Daisy, they smashed up things and creatures and then retreated back into their money or their vast carelessness and let other people clean up the mess they had made.
That might be the most damning single sentence in American literature. It perfectly defines the brutal class divide. The rich can afford to be careless because their money protects them. The poor always pay the price for that carelessness.
So Nick finally leaves. He packs up and goes back to the Midwest.
He realizes the East is completely grotesque. It is morally bankrupt. He wants to return to a place of structured, recognizable morality, even if it is boring and provincial. He wants the world to stand at moral attention forever. He realizes that you cannot really go home again. You are never the same person. But he knows he cannot stay in the toxic ashes of the Jazz Age.
So what does this all mean for us? If we synthesize this entire deep dive, the sources are telling us that The Great Gatsby is absolutely not a romance.
Not even close.
Yeah.
It is a brilliant, searing tragedy about the utter impossibility of the American dream in a highly stratified society. It tells us that you cannot invent yourself from scratch if the world's rules are rigged against you from birth. It tells us that pure materialism is a dead end for the human soul.
And it tells us that the past is a heavy, unavoidable thing.
That brings us right to the famous last line of the novel.
No.
So we beat on boats against a current, borne back ceaselessly into the past.
I have always debated the meaning of this line with people. Is it fundamentally pessimistic? Does it mean we are always trying to move forward, but the current of history just violently pushes us back? We never actually get there.
It is heavily pessimistic. It says we are forever trapped by our own history. Gatsby tried so hard to sail against the current to reach that green light. But the current of his past, his poverty, his true social class, it ultimately swept him back and destroyed him.
But isn't there something noble in the beating on part? The fact that we keep rowing, we don't just give up and let the current take us.
There is a beautiful heroic futility to it. We are doomed to fail, perhaps. But it is an essential part of human nature to reach for that green light anyway, to try to grasp the orgastic future. As Nick says, tomorrow we will run faster, stretch out our arms farther.
So here's the final provocative thought for you, our listeners. Think about your own life. We all have a green light, something we are relentlessly chasing, something just out of reach that we think will make everything perfect if we can just get our hands on it.
The real question you have to ask yourself is this. Is your green light a real, tangible possibility? Or is it just a powerful illusion? Are you actually chasing a better future? Or are you like Jay Gatsby, just desperately trying to fix a broken past?
And are you rowing against a current that is simply too strong? That is definitely something to think about the next time you look out across the water at a distant light.
Indeed. Always keep looking for the harsh reality hiding just behind the beautiful illusion.
That is a wrap for this deep dive into The Great Gatsby. We hope you never look at a flapper dress or a yellow car quite the same way again. Thanks for listening. We will see you in the next deep